since the initial pianogate incident, the Chinese group that was involved has been very busy trying to defend themselves and attack Dr. K at the same time. For example, Mengying, at the time of this recording, she has uploaded 3 videos, appeared on 1 interview, called for help, and threatened to sue Brandon and others. So in this video, I'm going to analyze all the tactics Mengying and Newton had used in the aftermath, and since I also grew up in Communist China, let me explain why their tactics, deliberate or not, are the direct result of the Chinese Communist Party culture. Out of the 3 main Chinese persons who interacted with Brandon on that day, Adelina has stayed completely quiet. Shouty guy Newton initially made an Instagram post and deleted soon after, and also stayed quiet since then, except that he started a site called Fight Racism linked on his Instagram, and if you open up the site, it sells Don't Touch Her t-shirts. So he's been quietly profiting from this event. How shameless. Alright, let's start with him. So on January 22nd or 23rd, Newton replied to a Chinese comment on his Instagram. I'm going to put the English translation on the right. If you watched Brandon's live stream, you knew that everything he's saying here are all lies. I'm not going to spend time here to debunk everything he said, but it's very clear that the #1 tactic he's using here is deceit. The second point he raised is about Brandon confusing Chinese and Japanese and deliberately calling these Chinese group Japanese. Also, he played the so-called racist song. Well, both of these topics are very sensitive issue to Chinese people, especially the patriotic type. So even though what he said is not true, what he's trying to do here is to incite hatred. Because remember, this reply is in Chinese, in reply to someone who apparently works in Chinese media. And what he's trying to do is to get Chinese people's patriotism worked up and also playing the victim here. His last point is about the station is a private property and they must have permit, which both are lies, of course, but what he's trying to do here is to justify his action. On January 22nd, 3 days after the incident, Mengying also posted a response around the same time that Newton posted his reply, and her main points are very similar to Newton's. Mengying recorded the video in Chinese only, and it's only uploaded on Chinese platform. It's meant for a Chinese audience. First, she said Brandon started it. She accused Brandon for deliberately stirring up conflict to gain more views. And then she said they patiently waited for over 40 minutes and she only came over to ask how much longer Brandon is going to play the piano for, which we all knew. What's the first sentence she said after coming over to Brandon?
I could see because earlier film for Chinese TV as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, did you film as all of us in your cameras?
She also said Brandon only posted an edited version of the video. But Brandon was doing live stream. How can he be editing anything? So same tactic, deceit. Then she said Brandon tried to mock them by calling them Japanese, asked Adelina to dance and also play the discriminating song. He also used the word communist, which is not a polite word, according to her. So this is the same thing, inciting hatred among Chinese people and also playing the victim here. Then she said Brandon tried to grab Adelina's flag, and she went on to emphasize how important the flag is, and they were just trying to protect the flag, and that's why Newton lost it. This is a point I mentioned in my previous video, and some comments seem to think I made up the excuse for Newton. That's not the case. It actually came straight from her mouth. Of course, this is clearly an excuse that she came up with, but remember this video is in Chinese, meant for a Chinese audience. She knew that mentioning about the flag will help gain the favor of Chinese people. And if you want to learn the reason behind it, make sure to check out my previous video. So this move she did is to redirect the focus and using patriotism to incite hatred. And lastly, she did 2 things. One is showing footage of Brandon being stopped by security from his previous videos. And then she said Brandon uploaded his video without their permission. So again, trying to use the law to justify their behavior. What's interesting is both Newton and Mengying deleted their response soon after. They probably realized there are too many loopholes in their statement and people are not buying it. On January 25th, 3 days after their initial response, Mengying posted something again, but this time her attitude completely changed. She said she's so scared and asking for help, so this time she's playing the victim card and trying to gain people's empathy. Now on January 28th, just another 3 days later, can you believe that Mengying's attitude did another 180-degree turn? She was so active this day. First of all, at 2 p.m., she posted on Twitter, and in this tweet, she revealed and confirmed Christine Li's identity. Before her, it was all just speculation, but in her tweet, she wrote Christine Li was the one talking with her boyfriend that day, and that means whatever they were filming definitely has everything to do with the CCP. Otherwise, a senior spy like Christine Li, who has shaken the hand of Xi Jinping, wouldn't just be there standing and accompanying them. And then at 7:30 that evening, in the response she posted to Brian Wan, by the way, shout out to Brian for digging up all this juicy stuff on Twitter. So in her post, she said there's an ongoing lawsuit against Brandon, and she also threatened to sue Brian if he continued to share. Threatening is definitely another tactic they're using. In a reply Mengying wrote on Xiaohongshu, a Chinese social media platform, she wrote that her lawyer is a friend of her of more than 10 years, and she has handled over 100 cases and she's never lost. It seems like she's talking about Christine Li here. I remember during the initial conflict, she was the most reasonable one out of the three. How did she become so aggressive lately? I think it has something to do with her friend, Christine Li. The funny thing is, she's allegedly facing lawsuit in China right now for defamation and violation of image right. And yet she dares to threaten Brandon and others for defamation and privacy reasons? What a hypocrite! Her business is also facing tons of accusation in fraud, in false advertisement, and other unfair business practices. I wonder if her trustworthy, never lost lawyer friend can help her there. Now, just merely half an hour later, Mengying released another video on Twitter and said, "This is our response for the hatred received, and we don't care, you're nobodies." She even put in the effort of implanting a Chinese Communist flag on the table, but it backfired because she used the toilet paper roll to prop the flag up. That's considered an insult to the flag and the CCP according to their standard. The next morning on January 29th at 6 a.m., Mengying posted another video on Twitter. This time, the video is still spoken in Chinese, but it's published on Western media and Western platform. And this time, again, she went back to the victim card. Her main points were she's just a single individual, she's a helpless girl being attacked by a powerful influencer in order to make profit, and Brandon put words in her mouth by saying not allowed. So two things, twisting the fact, deceit, and playing the victim. And towards the end, she said, we should be able to protect women. Unlike the translation said, your friend. So she played the feminism card. And she used women's rights and protecting women to incite hatred again. But then for some reason, she deleted all her posts from Twitter again soon after, before her Twitter account was suspended. But it's okay, because on January 30th, she showed up again, this time on someone else's channel. So this time she's being interviewed. I'm not going to go into the details of the interview because she basically repeated all her points and used the same type of tactics. What's interesting to me is the interviewer. So this guy, Luke, is a British PhD student currently living in Shanghai. He's definitely pro-CCP. In his interview, he tried to make it sound unbiased to hear her side of the story, but all he did was asking leading questions. And listen to his conclusion.
For me, as someone on YouTube, as I'm putting myself out on this platform, I know I'm subject to a lot of criticism and hate, and I'm aware of that. But for you, you're not at all. This is just your normal day. You're just out there, and he's making lots of videos. He's like making fun of you guys. This is really affecting you, and you didn't want any of this at all. So yeah, it's totally not on. And yeah.
Mengying is a YouTuber herself, and she has multiple social media accounts to promote her business. And so far, she's definitely been enjoying the attention she's getting, but she has to play the victim card here. And think about it, everyone. What are the chances for her very first interview to be with a Western face and a pro-CCP Western face, and he also happened to be from the UK? This seems totally staged, and this is another tactic she's using, putting up a facade. Actually, putting up a facade is the reason why the Chinese group showed up in the train station in the first place. Every year during Chinese New Year time, the state-run CCTV puts up a Chinese New Year gala. And there's always a remote segment where they show some Chinese and Westerners from around the world celebrating Chinese New Year in their own country. This Chinese New Year Gala is apparently the world's most watched television program with 1 billion viewers, so it's definitely one of the most powerful tools the CCP used to brainwash people. I don't know the supposed volunteer Chinese New Year greeting thing the Chinese group is doing is for CCTV or not, but it's definitely serving the same purpose. Especially the senior CCP spy Christine Lee was also there. What they were doing at the train station that day was to put up a show to create an illusion for people living in China and to show them how much the party is loved by everyone in every country. And in this case, the interview serves the purpose of creating an illusion for Chinese people of how even a native British guy is on her side. Now, this is everything the group has done so far. To be honest, I don't think Mengying is very bright. Look at all the bad moves she has made, and while the other two has stayed quiet, she just kept jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire. But at the same time, all the strategies she has used are quite cunning, manipulative, and evil. So where did she get it from? I think a lot of it comes from the party culture. You probably know that China has no freedom of speech, no free access to information. That's why the CCP built a giant firewall to block out all sites that could pose a potential threat to the regime, such as Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Wikipedia, etc., etc. What you probably didn't know is that all types of media are also controlled inside China by the CCP, including every TV station, print and digital media, advertisement, and the entertainment industry. Now, for someone who grows up and lives in an environment where everything they watch, they hear, they read, and everybody they interact with is a demonstration of CCP's tactics, they will most likely end up doing things the same way and think this is the right way to handle things. This is clearly the case for Mengying and Newton. Let's take a look at all the tactics Mengying and Newton has been using so far and compare it with how CCP has handled threats historically. I'm going to use the crackdown on Falun Gong as an example. In case you're not familiar with Falun Gong, it is a meditation practice originated from China. It's based on 3 principles: truth, compassion, and forbearance. Before the persecution started in 1999, Falun Gong was actually super popular. Now, because there's such a large percentage of Chinese population practicing Falun Gong, the CCP viewed it as a threat to the regime. On top of that, Falun Gong teaches people to be good, to have faith, to have strong spiritual beliefs, all of which the CCP tried very hard to destroy for many years. Because the communist ideology is based on atheism, that's the only way they can make people worship the party and worship the chairman. And the population without faith is much easier to control and to manipulate. That's why the CCP decided to crack down and eliminate Falun Gong. The first thing they did was deceit. In 1999, the CCP started using state-run media to spread propaganda and lies about the practice. Then on April 25, 1999, around 10,000 Falun Gong practitioners gathered in front of Zhongnanhai, which is CCP's compound in Beijing, to have a peaceful appeal, hoping to meet with some high-level officials and clear their name. And what happened was, the CCP sent out policemen and led this group of Falun Gong practitioners to walk around the premise of Zhongnanhai and eventually surrounded it. So by next morning, all the headlines read, Falun Gong sieged Zhongnanhai. So now the CCP became the victim. And then they started targeting individual Falun Gong practitioners and threatened them with losing their jobs, losing their home, losing their family, and even their lives if they don't stop practicing. When that's not working, in 2001 during Chinese New Year time, the CCP hired actors and staged a self-immolation act and broadcasted all over China. So now people are scared of this group. Soon after the Self-Immolation Act, the CCP labeled Falun Gong a cult and is now outlawed in China. So any action the CCP took against Falun Gong and its members are now lawful. Even though in the Chinese constitution, it still says people have the freedom of speech, religion, and gathering rights. And then our TVs were completely filled with propaganda programs no matter which channel you change to. They will conduct interviews with former practitioners or actors and crying on camera, denouncing the practice, and most importantly, thanking the party for saving them and giving them a new life. And within a few months, the CCP has successfully turned every Chinese person who watches TV or read newspaper against Falun Gong. The CCP is very good at using these tactics to hide their true intention. They constantly change their narratives when something doesn't work, so it's easy to get confused and fall into their traps. So now you understand why Mengying kept changing her perspective and her narrative every time she came out with something new. Every Chinese person who grew up and lived in China were soaked in this party culture every day. I actually didn't realize how weird some of my thinking and behavior was until I left China. That's why I think Mengying's behavior is a result of the Communist Party culture. But I'm not saying that's an excuse for her. I just think she's another sad victim of the regime. And look, every move she made, she just dug her own grave deeper. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Ali, and I'll see you next time.